When 11-year-old Ethan proudly told his fifth-grade class that his dad worked at NASA, the room didn't cheer. It erupted in laughter. His teacher dismissed it as a wild exaggeration, and Ethan's confidence wavered. What started as a simple classroom moment turned into something unforgettable. But everything changed when one man stepped through the door. This is a story about assumptions, resilience, and a boy who clung to the truth even when it was hard. If you've ever been doubted or had to prove yourself to skeptics, this will resonate. One teacher's laugh nearly crushed a child's spirit until the truth walked in wearing a NASA badge. Have you ever experienced a moment that lingers like a bad odor? A comment that instantly shifts the atmosphere in a room? That's exactly what happened at Prescott Elementary in Ms. Worthington's fifth-grade class in Chandler, Arizona. It was Career Week, an annual event where kids sat cross-legged on the reading rug while parents showcased their jobs with props like stethoscopes, hard hats, or laptops. Some children radiated pride. Others shrank into themselves. But everyone looked forward to it. A break from spelling tests and multiplication drills. Ethan Brooks practically vibrated with excitement that morning. Small for his age, but sharp as a tack, he spoke with wide-eyed enthusiasm, as if every word carried weight. His dad was scheduled to come that afternoon. So when Mr. Denton asked the class to share what their parents did for work, Ethan sat up straight, chest puffed out. "My dad works at NASA," he declared. The room went silent, not the kind of silence that follows confusion, but the kind that follows disbelief. A snort came from one corner. "Yeah, right," someone whispered. But it was the teacher's reaction that stung the most. Mr. Charles Denton, early 40s, thinning hair, khakis, and a tucked-in polo, chuckled. Not a full laugh, but the kind that makes you feel small. "NASA, huh?" he said, raising his eyebrows as if Ethan had claimed his dad built rockets in the backyard. "That's quite the imagination, Ethan. Maybe next time, aim for something more realistic." A few kids giggled. One girl even repeated, "More realistic," under her breath, as if it were an inside joke. Ethan didn't respond. He just stared at the rug, his sneakers tapping together, his hands, once animated, now clenched into fists on his lap. Mr. Denton moved on without noticing how Ethan's shoulders slumped or how his usual chatter vanished. But two classmates, Mila and Gwen, leaned in. "I believe you," Mila whispered. Ethan didn't answer, just nodded slightly, eyes fixed on the floor. The morning blurred past. Jacob's dad was a firefighter. Chloe's mom owned a bakery. Parents came and went, applauded and thanked. But Ethan just sat there, trying to melt into the carpet. At lunch, he barely touched his sandwich, didn't laugh at the usual antics by the vending machines, didn't race for the swings. What stuck with him wasn't just the laughter or the doubt. It was how easily an adult, someone meant to encourage him, had dismissed him without a second thought. But Mr. Denton didn't know the truth. Ethan wasn't guessing, exaggerating, or making things up. His father, Dr. Kelvin Brooks, was an aerospace engineer working on a Mars communications relay project. He wore a NASA badge every day, and Ethan was proud of him. But in that moment, none of it mattered, because to the person at the front of the room, the idea of someone like Dr. Brooks being Ethan's father seemed impossible. The day wasn't over yet, and someone was about to walk in and change everything. 3 days before Career Week, Ethan had been in the garage with his dad, helping sort old cables and wires, mostly just watching. He sat on an overturned milk crate, Capri Sun in hand, firing off questions every 2 minutes. "Wait, so the rover has to wait how long to send a message back to Earth?" Dr. Kelvin Brooks didn't look up from the tangle of wires. "Depending on Mars orbit, 5 to 20 minutes. Ethan's eyes widened. "So it's like texting someone with really bad service." Kelvin laughed. "Exactly. Space has terrible Wi-Fi." Those were Ethan's favorite moments. Simple, unscripted, where science became fun and complicated things made sense because his dad took the time to explain. At work, Dr. Brooks commanded respect. At home, he was soft-spoken, his hands either typing, holding a tool, or resting on Ethan's shoulders. The night before career week, Ethan had practiced his speech in front of the bathroom mirror, even cracking a joke about space Wi-Fi. But none of it mattered after Mr. Denton laughed. At lunch, Ethan didn't share what he prepared. He ripped up his drawing of his dad holding Earth and a satellite, crumpled it, and shoved it to the bottom of his backpack. Back at school, the afternoon dragged. Mr. Denton slipped back into his routine, but Ethan stayed quiet in a way that didn't suit an 11-year-old. Mila noticed. So did a few others, but no one said anything. Career presentations were scheduled for the last hour. Parents waited outside, called in one by one. Ethan watched the clock, palms sweaty, knees bouncing. Chloe's mom brought cupcakes. Thomas's uncle, a mechanic, showed off a tire pressure gauge. The class clapped and laughed, but Ethan just sat there, praying his dad wouldn't get stuck in traffic. Then, with 15 minutes left, the door opened. Dr. Kelvin Brooks stepped in, navy blazer, white shirt, slacks, and that unmistakable Nessa badge clipped to his pocket. His eyes scanned the room and landed on Ethan, who sat up so fast his chair scraped the floor. "Hello," Kelvin said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm Dr. Brooks. I design spacecraft." The room froze, not with laughter, but realization. Mr. Denton blinked, lips parting slightly. Ethan stared, wide-eyed, as his dad walked to the front, cool and measured. "You guys learning about jobs today?" Kelvin asked. Hands shot up. "Do you fly rockets?" "Not quite. I build the systems that let rockets talk to us after they leave Earth. Think of it like space iPhones, with really bad reception." The class laughed. Even Ethan smiled. Kelvin showed slides of the Mars Relay Project, explaining how they stayed connected to robots on another planet. The kids leaned in. Mr. Denton stayed quiet, eyes darting between Kelvin and Ethan, who now sat taller than he had all day. Just before leaving, Kelvin paused. "By the way," he said, voice calm, "I heard someone say working at NASA might be unrealistic." He turned to Ethan. "Well, I guess some people have a different definition of realistic." Then he smiled. Ethan beamed. Mr. Denton cleared his throat. "Thank you, Dr. Brooks. That was informative." Kelvin nodded. "I hope your students always feel heard, especially the ones who dream big." And with that, he was gone. The tension lingered. Mr. Denton stood frozen, clipboard in hand, as the kids clapped half-heartedly. The balance had shifted. After the final presentation, the class packed up. Ethan stayed seated, waiting. When the room emptied, Mr. Denton approached. "Hey," he started, awkwardly. "Your dad seems like a pretty smart guy." "He is," Ethan said. Mr. Denton hesitated. "I may have jumped the gun earlier." Ethan didn't respond. "Sometimes teachers make mistakes," Mr. Denton admitted. "I'm sorry." Ethan stood, slung his backpack over his shoulder, and walked to the door. Before leaving, he looked back. "It wasn't your imagination. That's really my dad." That evening, Ethan sat at the kitchen table with cereal for dinner. Kelvin leaned against the counter, sipping from a space nerd mug. "Did you hear him?" Ethan asked. "When I said you worked at NASA," he laughed. Kelvin set the mug down. "Yeah, I heard. Why do people do that?" "Sometimes they see the world in a small box," Kelvin said. "When something doesn't fit, they laugh. But it's not your job to shrink for them." Ethan stirred his cereal. "I didn't feel smart anymore." Kelvin leaned in. "Don't let someone else's doubt erase your truth. You know who you are. That's what matters." The next morning, something had changed. Kids who'd laughed now wanted to sit with Ethan. One asked if his dad had met an astronaut. Another begged him to bring a space tool to class. Mila walked beside him at recess. "They believe you now." Ethan shrugged. "They didn't have to." Mila grinned. Still nice, though. Mr. Denton left a note in Ethan's cubby. Ethan, I was wrong. You shouldn't have had to prove anything. Keep dreaming big. Mr. Denton. Ethan folded it and tucked it away. He hadn't needed the apology, but maybe Mr. Denton had needed to write it. As the final bell rang, Ethan walked out with his head high. Not because the class believed him now, but because the truth had never changed. His dad had shown up. He was an engineer. And most importantly, Ethan had told the truth, even when no one believed him. Somewhere in that classroom, a teacher had been reminded of a lesson he'd forgotten. Kids carry dreams bigger than most adults' expectations. When we dismiss those dreams, we don't just shrink their imagination, we shrink their voice. Ethan stayed loud, clear, and real. Because the truth doesn't need permission. It just needs someone brave enough to say it. If you've ever been doubted, overlooked, or told to be more realistic, remember this: other people's limits don't define your path. Keep showing up. Keep speaking your truth. And if you're ever in a position to believe in someone when nobody else will, do it. You might just change everything.